Hi everyone, so for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 things that I eat basically every single day. And I'm going to explain to you why they're important for healthy aging. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you a few things that I would recommend avoiding completely every single day. And I'm going to share with you a struggle I had with one of them. So ingredient number 1 is EVOO. And I'm going to be saying EVOO throughout the rest of the video because I actually get tagged for saying, I think, the second word in that phrase. And so to prevent that from happening, we're just gonna keep it simple and say EVOO. So I've read a bunch of research papers on this topic because I personally was very curious for my own health to find out which would be the best cooking oil to be using, as well as just like eating in general. And if you're interested in that, I've created a whole video on all that research that I found. It goes into way more depth than what we're going to discuss today. So if you're interested, click the link above. Other than that, long story short, EVOO is by far the best cooking oil that I personally have found from my research. So that's what I personally eat all the time and what I recommend to everyone as well. And there are many reasons for it. One of them is its fat profile. Another one is that it's a fat that's really high in polyphenols. And polyphenols are really healthy for you. They have very potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects, which are very good for your body. And then this is another interesting aspect. Those polyphenols actually also help protect the oil when you're exposing it to heat. So this is a few reasons for why I recommend it. Now let's dive into the different types of olive oils, because there are. And I'm going to specifically be hitting on the points on the processing types. So there's EVOO, there's VOO. These are both cold pressed. And then you have general olive oil. Now general olive oils, you need to be very careful with them, because a lot of times they contain a high amount of refined olive oil. And when olive oil is refined, what happens is that it can strip out a lot of those really healthy compounds like polyphenols, which is a bit of a shame then, because then you're consuming something that doesn't have that. So I personally recommend EVOO and VOO because they are cold pressed, and by doing that, you're actually keeping all of those really healthy molecules in the oil, like polyphenols, for example. Ingredient number 2, oats. So I eat these for breakfast, and I personally recommend eating something that's less processed, so preferably the actual oat groat, so the whole cereal grain form of the oat. There are different types of oats, different types of processing. I've tried to look into the research comparing the different types of processed oats head to head, and there's not many, to be honest. There are a couple though, and mostly the research is focusing on its effects on blood sugar control and risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And the less processed oats were actually much better at that. So that's why I recommend that. Oats are also linked to many health benefits. For example, they're linked to a healthy microbiome, reduced risk of heart disease, and better management of blood sugar control. And it's proposed that they're linked to a reduced risk of heart disease. One of the mechanisms, at least, is because oats contain a large amount of fiber. And when you consume that fiber, what happens is that food-chew mixture in your digestive system gets really viscous, like a gel, and it's hard to move around. And so what happens is that the compounds in your digestive system, it's harder for them to move around as well. And one of those is bile acid. Now, bile acid is secreted by your body into your digestive system to help break down the fat you've just eaten. It's one of the upstream processes. Any case, when the bile acid is put into your digestive system and it's really viscous, it's really hard for the body to reabsorb it. And actually, the body does try to recycle a lot of bile acid over and over again. And because it's harder for the body to reabsorb it, what happens is you end up excreting more bile acid out of your body. And so the body needs to make more. So how does the body make more? Well, interestingly enough, bile acid, the base of it, it's made from cholesterol. So what the body does is it actually pulls out circulating cholesterol, so from your blood, and it makes more bile acid that it can then use to break down food, and other reasons. It's linked to many different things. So this is one of the proposed mechanisms for why consuming oats and things high in fiber, it's linked to reduce risks of heart disease. Now, this same mechanism is also linked to reduce risks of diabetes for basically the same reason. It's that it's harder for the molecules in your digestive system, when it's really viscous like that, to be absorbed into the body. So that includes glucose. All right, so now I want to touch on a really interesting study that was conducted in 40,000 men. And they were basically looking at the impact of consuming fiber from different sources and how that affected the development of type 2 diabetes. I should rather say the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And it was really interesting because they found men who had high glycemic load diets, so diets that spike blood sugar often. They actually had a reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes when they consumed a lot of whole cereal grains compared to their counterparts who also had high glycemic load diets and consumed a low amount of those. And in fact, it's really interesting. I'm going to pull up the image right here from the paper. If you're looking at the X and Z axis here, we can see here on the Y axis, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And you can see basically the highest risk is actually with this group that has a really high glycemic load diet, as well as consuming a low amount of whole grains. So it's very interesting because it suggests that some people can be having a high glycemic load diet, and actually consuming whole grains actually kind of protects the effects of that. Now, another point in this study that was very interesting, they compared not only whole cereal grains, they were also looking at fiber from fruits and vegetables. And actually, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes didn't have an association with the fiber from fruits and vegetables. The fiber that had the impact for reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes came specifically from whole cereal grains. Ingredient 3, flax seeds. I also eat these basically every single day for breakfast, and I eat them because they're high in omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, which is an essential fatty acid, meaning that your body cannot make it. The only way you can get it is by eating it. Foods also high in omega-3 fatty acids include things like sardines, herring, and red caviar. But these foods are high in a different type of omega-3 fatty acid, specifically DHA and EPA. Now, these ones are not essential fatty acids, so they can be made from things like alpha-linolenic acid. However, researchers find that this conversion from alpha-linolenic acid to DHA or EPA is quite inefficient. And actually, the conversion rate to DHA is less than 5%, is what the current data indicate. And the conversion to EPA is around 5 to 10%, so pretty low. However, DHA and EPA have a lot of health benefits associated with them. So in order to get your recommended dietary limit for the day, many health professionals do recommend you're just eating those directly into your diet, either by consuming foods high in them or by consuming a supplement. So EPA and DHA do offer many health benefits, which include supporting heart health, nervous system function, as well as a healthy inflammatory response. And in fact, current data actually indicate EPA and DHA actually have stronger health effects than alpha-linolenic acid. So I'm specifically thinking of one study. They looked at people and they analyzed their blood. And they found that people who had higher levels of DHA, DPA, and EPA in their blood, actually they lived longer. And this association was not found for alpha-linolenic acid. It's also important to be consuming more omega-3 fatty acids because today, some diets contain 10 to 25 times more omega-6 than omega-3 fatty acids. And scientists find that this ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is really important for your health. And in fact, most data recommend getting closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. This is where the health benefits appear to be. So this ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is being studied for many different health topics, including heart health, obesity, cancer, and inflammation. So because of that, scientists do think most people would benefit from consuming more omega-3 fatty acids. Ingredient for water. Obviously, I drink water every day. I would estimate I drink about 2 liters of water every day. And I estimate that because I fill up my water bottle up about twice a day. Now, water is essential for normal physiological function as well as your health. It's important for metabolism, temperature regulation, circulation, as well as cognitive function. And in fact, your body is made up of about 60% of water for an adult. So it's very important. And actually, a low amount of water consumption is linked with some adverse health effects like kidney stones, exercise asthma, high blood pressure, and heart disease. Depending on the authority you cite, current guidelines recommend a daily intake of around 2 to 2.5 liters for women and 2.5 to 3.7 liters for men. Now, this range is just an average. You just need to consider it like that. The amount of water you should be consuming is very specific to you because there are many variables that can affect it. Not only your gender, but also your body mass, how much you are exercising, if you are pregnant, what your current diet is, the list goes on. So it needs to be really specific to you. Listen to your body and your doctor when you are deciding how much water you should be drinking. Ingredient 5, a vegetable. So every day I do eat some type of vegetable. My favorite is spinach, but I don't have it every day. That's why this section is not called spinach. And it's my favorite because it's really high in nitrates. Nitrates are very healthy for your body because they get converted into a compound called nitric oxide, which is the main compound providing health benefits for adults. Nitric oxide is also linked to improved exercise efficiency as well as improved cognition in overweight adults, which I found to be really interesting. But then I became a bit confused because nitrites and nitrates are also used to cure meats, which have a plethora of negative health benefits associated with them. So I was thinking, why do those have so many negative health benefits, but nitrates in vegetables are so healthy? So I actually looked into the science and the research behind it, and now I understand the pathways and why that is, and I've created a video to share with you guys so you can also understand that, to understand why that is so you can choose what's best for your body. If you're curious, click the link above and you can dive into that research. Now I'm going to touch on some things I would recommend avoiding every single day. I'm going to mention 3 specifically in this video, and they are ultra-processed foods, alcohol, and sugar. Let's go first into ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods are designed to be cheap, last long, and to sell. Unfortunately, ultra-processed foods are linked to an array of health problems. I'm just going to list a couple of them to you here. They can disrupt your gut microbiome in a way that promotes inflammatory diseases, increase your risk of cancer, increase your risk of metabolic dysfunction like type 2 diabetes. They can impair male reproductive health. They can increase your risk of heart disease. They can negatively impact mental health, and they can shorten your lifespan. We also talked about the importance of an omega-6, omega-3 ratio being closer to 1-to-1, and actually ultra-processed foods are linked to higher omega-6, omega-3 ratios. So essentially by consuming less ultra-processed foods, theoretically you could also get that ratio closer to a 1-to-1 ratio. The next one is alcohol, and I'm going to keep this really short, sweet, and simple. Alcohol is a carcinogen. I think that should pretty much summarize how unhealthy it is for your body, to be honest. I've also created a video that goes into a little bit more depth on alcohol and how it affects your body and whatnot. So if you're interested in that, click the link above. The next one is foods high in sugar, and you really need to watch out for this one because there are health foods out there that appear healthy, but they're actually super high in sugar. I was quite shocked actually when I walked around the grocery store and I looked at some of the things that I thought were healthy. Things that I can just remember from my own experience is fruit yogurts, protein bars, juices. Juices have a lot of sugar in them. Even the organic, fresh squeezed orange juice, to be honest. And you really want to be avoiding sugar because there are a lot of negative health effects associated with it, which I'm going to share with you guys in one of my future videos. And this is the one that I actually really personally struggled with. I ate a ton of sugar. I actually, I completely changed my diet about 1.5 years ago. Before that, I was consuming, I think, probably like more than 50 grams of sugar a day. And that sounds like a lot, but when you look at your diet, you will be shocked as well. When you start looking at the nutrition facts and seeing how much sugar is in a chocolate bar, like I was eating I love chocolate, so I was eating a lot of chocolate. You know, I would eat fruit yogurts. I would, sometimes have a healthy protein bar, and it all really adds up. When you look at the label and you see how much, it's shocking. Like a piece of chocolate like this size can have like 3 to 6 grams of sugar. So in any case, about 1.5 years ago, I decided to really reduce sugar in my diet, and I was just basically monitoring things I bought that were processed with a nutrition fact label. And I was kind of aiming for not eating more than 25 grams of sugar a day. That was my initial limit. And I have to say it was very, very difficult. I had very strong cravings within the first 2 weeks, but then it kind of loosens a bit. You don't have as strong of a craving anymore and it becomes more manageable. And now I would say I don't consume on average more than 10 grams of sugar a day. Just of course looking at things with nutrient facts. I don't look, to be completely honest, I don't look up and see how much sugar is in the fruit that I eat because I do eat berries as a dessert often. But I would say that based on average. Some days I would say closer to zeros. Other days, more rare days, more than that because I'm having, for example, like I attend a wedding of a friend or a family member and I have a slice of cake and that has tons of sugar in it. So all in all, I think I could create a whole video on my experience with this diet, but I will just touch on a couple points. I eat way less food than I used to. It's way more easy for me to fast. I used to actually struggle with going long periods without food. I don't really have this anymore. I don't have as strong of cravings. I don't have strong cravings for sugar anymore like I used to. And the list goes on. I even had like feedback from my dentist who doesn't even know I started this diet. So these are 5 things that I eat every single day and why they're healthy. And then I shared with you 3 things that I recommend completely avoiding every single day. What are 5 things that you eat every day and why are they healthy? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, like, share, and subscribe.